Airplane disappearances are quite common, but trains disappear far less frequently. One of the most mystical disappearances in history involves a train, and it's worth learning about. This is Infinity, and in this episode I'll tell you about the train that appeared 45 years after it disappeared, as well as share other mysterious disappearance stories. Let's go! On July 14, 1911, the Italian tourist company Zanetti sent a train consisting of a locomotive and 3 passenger cars from Rome's Central Railway Station. There were 106 wealthy local tourists on the train who planned to enjoy the trip, admire the beautiful views, and just ride comfortably. The journey proceeded on schedule until the train came to a mountainous railroad tunnel in the northern region of the country. Then something inexplicable happened. The train entered a straight tunnel about 3,200 feet long that could be seen through but never appeared from the other side. It was as if it had dissolved inside the tunnel. This became known thanks to 2 passengers who managed to jump out of the vestibule. According to them, as they entered the tunnel, a fog began to thicken behind the windows and in the cars themselves, which soon began to resemble a viscous liquid. Further, a rumbling sound began to be heard in the tunnel. Panic broke out in the cars. The passengers in the vestibule panicked and immediately jumped off the train and ran to the tunnel exit. They saw the train continue moving and soon disappeared with the fog enveloping it. Afterwards, the surviving passengers suffered from severe sleep disorders and nightmares for a long time. After the incident, the tunnel was thoroughly inspected and checked, but no trace of the train was found. Subsequently, Italian and European railway companies flatly refused to allow their trains to pass through the ill-fated tunnel. The Italian authorities walled it up, and it remained in this condition until the 1940s when it was partially destroyed by a bomb. Over time, the train was forgotten, but eventually it made itself known again. In the late 1950s, a very strange document was discovered in the archives of Mexico City. It said that in 1845, more than 100 Italians showed up in Mexico. They came from an unknown place. All of them claimed to have arrived in Mexico City by train from Rome. Also in the 1950s, 45 years after its disappearance, the Zanetti Company train reappeared, but already as a ghost. Exactly the same train was seen by eyewitnesses in several places. So what was it? Was the train a time machine and the tunnel a portal? Or did the train just dissolve into the tunnel, becoming a real ghost? What do you think about this? Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments, and keep watching to see some more mystery trains. One of them appeared relatively recently, in 2018. A mysterious ghost train turned up at a station in China's Batao City. It literally looked like a ghost. It was just as transparent and virtually invisible. It stopped at the station in the late evening, at a time when no train was scheduled to pass through there. Further, the train stayed there for a short time and then left. Station workers assure that no real train was there at the time. And the employee in charge of station security said that he'd never seen anything like that in the 12 years he'd worked there and hoped it wouldn't happen again. But what was it? There are several versions. One is that a real ghost train, like the one that went missing in the Italian tunnel, arrived at the station in Batao. Some workers have suggested that it could be the ghost of a train that went off the rails about 40 years ago, taking many lives with it. According to another version, the train exists in a parallel universe that contacted with ours over time. But there's a not exotic version, according to which, in the surveillance room, the film is used several times, so the images are superimposed on each other. It's up to you to decide who to believe. The Silver Arrow. Sweden also has its own legends, and it's incredible since this country does not often shock the world with something unexpected. Many locals are well aware of the Silver Pylon, or the Silver Arrow train, which ran on the Stockholm Metro. It's called the Ghost Train. 8 Silver Pylon C5 cars were constructed in the mid-1960s. They made up the train, which resembled a prototype. The model was deemed unsuccessful, but it was decided not to write it off but to keep it on the line. Up until 1996, the Silver Arrow was used as an extra train during rush hours. All other Stockholm Metro trains were covered in paintings and advertisements, and only C5 retained its original factory appearance. Since 1997, C5 was finally removed from the line, but the train didn't go anywhere. Locals began to say that they saw the silver ghost train in various places. Workers saw it in abandoned tunnels. And at midnight, the train whizzed past metro station platforms without stopping. Sometimes the doors of the Silver Arrow opened. Rumor has it that passengers who got on the train returned home after a few months or didn't return at all. To this day, diggers sneak into abandoned stations, hoping to see the ghost train with their own eyes. The St. Louis Ghost Train. Next up is another mystery. It still puzzles the local residents of the small town of St. Louis in the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. According to them, they periodically observe a strange phenomenon. A patch of ghostly light, reminiscent of the headlight on the front of a locomotive, moves along the railroad track to the north of the town. The light varies in color and brightness, and sometimes it changes direction. According to the locals, they have the feeling that every night they see different, mysterious ghost trains. There are two legends about it. According to the first, it's actually the light from the spotlight of some ghost train. According to the second, once in these places, a track supervisor fell under the train, and his spirit, with a lantern in his hand, has been wandering along the railroad ever since. The St. Louis ghost train phenomenon has yet to be solved. Even scientists can't find an explanation. The same can be said of many other things. For example, about the mysterious and unexplained disappearances of recent years. Stay tuned to learn about the most mystical airplane disappearances of the 21st century and to see the missing people who have puzzled everyone. The disappearance of the Malaysian Boeing 777-200ER is still one of the biggest mysteries not only of the 21st century but of history in general. On March 8, 2014, just 40 minutes after takeoff from Kuala Lumpur Airport in Malaysia, the Boeing disappeared from all radar screens. Scheduled flight preparation showed that all systems were operational and there were no malfunctions. Takeoff and flight procedures were normal. No abnormal situations on board were reported to the services. This is why this incomprehensible disappearance of the plane stumped the air traffic controllers. They tried to find the aircraft, but it was in vain. Supposedly, after the disappearance, the plane deviated from the route and spent another 7 hours in the sky before finally disappearing. It was suggested that the aircraft was very likely to have fallen into the ocean. The most global search operations in the history of aviation were launched, but they yielded practically nothing. Only a few pieces of the Boeing wreckage were found, which a couple of years after the incident washed up in Reunion and East African countries. Apart from that, there were no more traces of the Boeing. It's not known where it is, where the wreckage might be, or whether any passengers might be alive. The story of the Malaysian Boeing is very famous, but not many people have heard about the crash that happened afterwards. I'm talking about the mysterious disappearance of AN-32, which happened on July 22, 2016. The military plane was on its way from Chennai, India, bound to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which are also part of India. The plane took off from Tambaram Air Force Station with 29 passengers, mostly military. About 40 minutes after takeoff, communication with the plane was lost. This happened at 9:12 local time. The AN-32 was supposed to land at its destination at 11:45, but the plane did not arrive. The search operation, the largest in Indian history, was launched as a matter of urgency. 16 ships, 6 airplanes, and a submarine began to comb the alleged distress areas around the personal supervision of the Indian Minister of Defense, but to no avail. The plane wasn't found, and the causes of the incident have not yet been determined. Airplane and train disappearances are always intriguing, but to me, mystical disappearances of people are something more mysterious. Let's move to them. One of the most high-profile cases in the United States over the past 10 years has been the disappearance of Robin Putnam, a student at California College of Arts in Oakland. On July 7, 2012, 25-year-old Robin took the train to visit his family in Grand Junction, Colorado. At about 3 a.m., the train made a scheduled stop in Salt Lake City, where it stayed for 25 minutes before completing the ride. But when the train arrived, Putnam was no longer on it. All of his belongings, including his wallet, magazine, and laptop, were still in his place, but Robin himself was nowhere to be found. Apparently, Robin got off the train during his stop in Salt Lake City, but it's unknown where he went next. It's believed that Robin had motives for making such a spontaneous escape. Before the trip, Robin acted strangely and also suffered from panic attacks, which even forced him to quit his job at the coffee shop. He also had great difficulty sleeping and sometimes couldn't distinguish between dreams and reality. Although Robin did not exhibit strange behavior on the train, it's believed that upon his arrival in Salt Lake City, he became confused, frightened, and ran away. 2 months after his disappearance, a man matching his description was seen on surveillance video at a Salt Lake City restaurant drinking alcohol with an unknown woman. For a long time, nothing was known about Robin, but in 2015, they found him. Not alive, though. They found him on the railroad tracks in Nevada. But it's not always possible to find missing people. For example, Andrew Gosden from Great Britain is still being sought, even though 15 years have passed since his disappearance. On September 14, 2007, at the time the 14-year-old teenager left for school, but never returned home. More specifically, he did go home to change his clothes and pick up a few things. Then he withdrew £200 from his bank account, bought a one-way ticket to King's Cross Railway Station in London from Doncaster Railway Station, got on camera at the station, and disappeared forever. The pictures of the guy at the train station are the last confirmed sightings of him. Andrew left no notes, showed no strange behavior, and had no problems, so his sudden departure for London stunned everyone. The strangest detail is that Andrew, according to station cashier's recollection, insisted on buying a one-way ticket, even after the cashier informed him that the return ticket would only cost £1 more. What could this mean? Did the guy want to start his life over from scratch? Or did he have some problems he couldn't handle after all? We never seem to find it out. 15 years have passed, and the investigation has no clues or even an explanation for the guy's actions. That's all, guys. What mysterious disappearance surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you later.